Well, why don't we start? My name is Fred Van Deusen, and I'm doing this presentation together with Dale Anderson, and we'll be talking about building a UU democracy leaders community. This is sponsored by Unitarian Universalists for Social Justice. That's UUSJ. And I'm the co-convener of the Democracy Action Team at UUSJ, and I'm a member of First Parish in Concord, Massachusetts. And Dale is actually the board chair of UUSJ. He's also a member of the Democracy Action Team, and he's from the church in Sarasota, Florida. And we are both white males in our 70s with, I think, gray hair. I can tell that gray. Dale got some gray there. Yeah, Dale's got some there. He's wearing glasses. I'm wearing a checked shirt, and Dale's got a nice jacket on. So that's all about us. And if you could go to the next slide, we'll talk about what we're going to do today. So we want to talk to you a little bit about UUSJ, so you know what we do, and why we formed this UUSJ Democracy Action Team, and how this Democracy Action Team then got started with the UUSJ Democracy Leaders Group. So we'll kind of go through a little bit of history. We'll talk a bit about what's going on with our democracy now and what we can do about it. We're going to get into how congregations can form democracy action teams if you haven't already got one. And we'll talk about coalitions, why they're important, and what actions that we'll be pursuing as democracy action teams going forward. So, Dale, I think you've got the next slide.
Yeah, so I'm going to refer to the Unitarian Universalists for Social Justice as UUSJ. It was founded in 2000. It was based in the Washington, D.C. area. UUSJ is entirely funded by donations. It's a donor-funded organization. And its vision is a just, compassionate, and sustainable world. Its mission is to advance equitable national policies and actions aligned with UU values through engagement, education, and advocacy. And its values are: we are effective and responsive, we are faithful to our UU principles and values, and we respect others. So UUSJ advocates for policies that reflect UU values on Capitol Hill. We're the essential lobbying arm of the UU community. And the focus in the past has always been on selecting strategic issues that are important from a UU value and principle point of view, arranging meetings with congressional offices, publicizing action alerts, maintaining these action teams that you'll learn more about, conducting workshops and webinars, kind of an educational component, and then organizing public witnessing activities. So the current board of the USSJ is an 11-member board. Pablo De Jesus is our executive director. The UUSJ was founded in 2000. Initially, it was a group of DC area congregations that came together and decided that we needed an advocacy focus. And so they formed UUSJ at that time. Because of the size of the congregations, I think they had, some 30 members on their board at that time. And it functioned that way until about 2001, when through a strategic planning process, they downsized the board from about 33 to these 11 members and went national. So it wasn't so focused around the greater DC area. So the board members now, as you can see, there's kind of, if you look where they're from, we have like Pat Mars from Long Beach, California. We have Gene Pierce from Oregon. We have Malia Hausneck from in the Minneapolis area. So we're really a national organization now. And the board itself is the kind of the governing structure, but the action really takes place in what we call these action teams. And Currently, there are two functioning action teams, the Democracy Action Team and the Immigration Action Team. And Fred will now talk about that Democracy Action Team.
So our Democracy Action Team actually formed in 2019. I'm the co-convener of that group, and Ursula Scott is our co-convener. Ursula focuses mostly on the legislation side, and I'm doing a lot of the work with the democracy leaders. As you can see, I'm not going to go through all of our members. Those faces are still the trustees that are up there. But our Democracy Action Team members are from all over the place as well, in terms of Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, California, Florida, North Carolina, Virginia. So we've got a pretty good group. We meet about once a month for an hour and a half or so to do our planning exercises. And you're all welcome to join us. Let's go to the next slide. So as Dale was just describing, we're doing similar work to what the other action teams are doing in terms of the immigration group. So we look at what the priorities are in DC. We can get a sense of what legislation is going to come up and how that fits in with what we're interested in. And we align the legislation with our priorities and pick things that we want to work on. And then we decide which legislators we're going to focus on based on, are they sponsoring the legislation, or are they in one of the committees that's doing something with it? And then after we've figured out who we want to talk to, then we set up meetings with their staff essentially. And once we've got dates for that, then we go out to the congregations and see who's willing to participate in the meetings from the congregations in those particular areas. That's that state or that area. And we recruit people, and we have meetings with the legislative staff. We've got a set agenda that we follow. We involve the people from the various area to speak. The representatives are always happy to hear from their constituents. And we've been following a lot of legislation. Probably the most important one we were following and worked on really hard was the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. Right now, we're pretty much focused on how we can stop the big bad bill that the legislature has put forward, that the Republicans have put forward. So that's what we're about there. So late in 23, right, very much at the end of that, we were talking about what it is we could do with our Democracy Action Team to help what was going on in congregations around the country. And we knew that the UU the Vote program was coming up because it was coming out in 2024. And that was going to be a real active period in terms of voting. So we pivoted and we decided that we would focus our activity on really building a democracy movement, something that was bigger than just the voting stuff. And it would get us into longer term actions over potentially years, but we would start with the voting. And we tried to we reached out to over 900 congregations around the country to learn what they were doing to support democracy. So that was back in January of 2024. We wound up putting together a mailing list, actually, of 129 people from 94 congregations. It's since grown dramatically. I think we have about 650 people on the mailing list now. And we asked, does your congregation have a Democracy Action Team or equivalent, organized and working to help strengthen and save our democracy? And we did get some responses. We got 38 responses, and it was a mix, but we were pleased to see that there were some democracy teams out there. About a third of the group who responded said they had a team, and more than a quarter were interested in forming a team or were in the process of forming a team. So that was good. And then looking at the data a little harder, we realized that most of 40% of the respondents were focused on short-term election issues. So they weren't quite as broad as we wanted them to be across the whole democracy space. 50% said their democracy team was basically part of their social justice committee. And 52% reported that they plan to support the UU the Vote initiative in 2024. So we helped them with that. And given that we had a number of people interested in joining the Democracy Leaders Group, we started our meetings starting in February of 2024, and we've met every month since. And generally, we have somewhere between 35 and 50, 60 people for our, often when we have a speaker, we'll have over 100 or maybe even 200. And as I said, we've got a whole bunch of people on our currently larger mailing list of 643 people. And we're open to UU members all over the country. We meet monthly. Schedule is fourth Wednesday of the month, although that will vary the schedule occasionally. We have lots of resources we can provide to democracy teams. And I'll put the links in the chat when I'm done speaking. We often have presentations by different groups in terms of how to organize to protect democracy. We've had guest speakers. We've done case presentations. So that's by individuals in various congregations who want to speak about what some of the things they've been doing. So we hear from each other, talk to each other about what's going on. It's very much an interactive meeting. We sometimes break out into small groups for discussions, but it's informal. We learn a lot from each other and we share a lot together.
So this kind of shows you kind of how this Democracy Leaders Group has evolved in terms of their interests. When we first came together, a lot of the discussion was trying to understand what the threat was, and that part of what we were doing was raising the alarm about the looming authoritarian threat. We publicized something called Your Personal Plan and distributed that. It was 50 things you can do to help save our democracy for individuals. That's still available on our website, but it gave individuals kind of a variety of actions that they could take. We then really talked about how do you form these democracy action teams, and we're going to go through more of that as we get into this presentation today. We talked about the need for a democracy movement rather than just support of a political party that was pro-democracy, that we had to do more than support the party. We had to really begin to create a grassroots democracy movement. We shared a lot of the information that some of the democracy action teams were doing in their local congregations. We talked about the importance of forming coalitions, that the size of our democracy action teams in any community was not going to be big enough to have the impact we need, and we had to reach out to other progressive, like-minded organizations in our communities and begin forming coalitions to effectively create a movement. Right as we started approaching the election in 2024, Project 2025 became a real area of focus because it was the blueprint for the authoritarian takeover and really the demise of our democracy. So we spent quite a bit of time talking about Project 2025. Right before the election, we were all very concerned about election security. So we did some deep dives on that, thinking that if a certain party lost, that there would be a constitutional election crisis potentially. Unfortunately, that certain party actually won the popular vote. We then, following that, we were all kind of responding to the impact of this re-election of a party that is clearly anti-democratic. And we talked about personal security. We talked about the authoritarian playbook and what we would expect this current administration to do going forward. And then most recently in this first quarter, we've been talking about the need for civil resistance and how that works into some kind of a plan or strategy going forward. When we first talked about raising the alarm, we had a presentation in 2023 called "A Fascist Campaign in Full View." Reverend Celia Kingman, UU Reverend Kingman, did a presentation on recognizing and resisting fascism as a people of faith. We brought in David Pepper, who spoke about saving democracy and a very specific user's manual. And we had Stephen Phillips, who authored How We Win the Civil War, do a presentation. You know, we really had a lot of discussion early on about using the word fascism, authoritarianism, and I'll speak a little more about that going forward here. Just to step back, though, we always reoriented ourselves around what is the effective structures of a democracy, and this takes into account a kind of a framework that Larry Diamond, who's at Stanford University, wrote about in his book Ill Winds, that the three real pillars of democracy to start with are free and fair elections, and then those freedoms which make it a liberal democracy of speech, assembly, association, and religion that show up in our Bill of Rights, and then a constitutional rule of law, that those are the fundamentals. And Larry Diamond argues that beyond that, you need government oversight institutions, ethics committees to check potential high-level corruption in the government. You need an independent judiciary to uphold the rule of law. You need trustworthy law enforcement to administer the law. You need to function with democratic norms where representatives on Congress understand that to be able to function effectively, you can't always win every time. And you need to continue to keep the separation of church and state. You also finally need a lively civil society in order to support, in order to push back against, to speak about truth and going forward. Now, each of these is under attack. We know that, and finally, you need the balance of power between the three branches of our government. Each of these has been under attack. Free and fair elections have been under attack at state level with voter suppression laws. We know that that continues and is corrupting our election process. We know our freedoms are in trouble with recent legislation, oftentimes at the state level, around threatening protesters, taking away the rights of the press and speech. We know that in the Trump versus U.S. case that went to the Supreme Court that allowed Trump to be above the law, that was a real blow to the constitutional review approval of law. And we know that since the regime has taken power, they've removed all of the oversight in the ethics. All the inspector generals have been removed. Independent judiciary is under threat. Law enforcement has now created loyalty towards the president, and democratic norms, separation of church and state, the balance of power in Congress have all been corrupted. And finally, there have been attacks at the state level on our public institutions, our universities, the press, business groups, not-for-profits, etc. We go back to the fact that these are kind of fundamental resources that have helped all of us. Tim Snyder's book on tyranny in 2017, How Fascism Works by Jason Stanley in 2018, How Democracies Die. These are all fundamental books that were really important going forward in our education. As well, Protect Democracy website has this authoritarian playbook outline. And then, of course, just reading through the mandate for leadership, Project 2025 gives you the whole pathway towards losing our democracy. Senator Elizabeth Warren, just 6 days ago said, what happened to Senator Padilla today is happening everywhere across the country every day. DHS agents are throwing people to the ground and violently handcuffing them while they are not resisting, detaining them from exercising their First Amendment rights for freedom of speech. And every day, Donald Trump is making this nation look more and more like a fascist state. So the word has kind of been raised up to the senator's level using that word fascism. One of the early people to warn us of what was coming was Umar Haque in his Medium writings. And he said, fascism is best seen as a kind of theft from the nation, a deep and profound theft, the deepest theft of all. It proceeds as a theft of rights, a theft of norms and values, theft of democracy, theft of decency and humanity. And beyond that, the in-group proceeds to rob the less powerful than them of everything without guilt or shame or fear. They steal their dignity, their belongings, their selfhood, their work, their social milieu, their possessions, and their lives. This was a post on an Instagram about a week ago where someone posted this. It was an Instagram showing ICE detaining a young woman, actually, and the cries of the family at the time. And on the post, they wrote a quote from Anne Frank from January 13th, 1943. Terrible things are happening outside at any time of day, or night or day. Poor helpless people are being dragged out of their homes. One of the things we learned was that this, what we're up against here is a permanent kind of insurgency. And as long as we have corporations and concentrated wealth, they will use their power to capture the public sphere to serve their interests of private capital, even if this contradicts democratic values and practices. And those ideas about this kind of permanent need for us to protect our democracy in the face of what a significant portion of our country does not want to succeed is outlined in the book by Steve Phillips about how we win the Civil War, and also this book by Robert Kagan on rebellion. So what did we learn? We've learned that the political threat to our democracy is real, immediate, and undeniable, that our president, certain GOP leaders, and their MAGA followers are all on board with the assault and open in their desire to install an autocratic regime, one with obvious parallels to previous fascist governments. That the forces of autocracy are well organized, loaded with cash, backed by powerful propaganda networks and certain foreign adversaries. The defenders of our democracy have been generally silent, out-organized, and underfunded for the challenge we face. That a pro-democracy political party alone cannot protect our democracy. That we need a broad, inclusive grassroots movement to counter this autocracy. And finally, that every American who cares about our nation and future must be ready to make sacrifices and find ways to contribute to the protection of our democracy going forward.
So given that, we talked about, so how can we save our democracy? Obviously, it needs a lot of attention. So from our perspective, there were three things that we could do. So we focused on things that we knew that were possible. And we came up with a list of personal plans. So for individuals, there are 50 things. And actually, Dale helped put that together. He was the major organizer for that. And it puts lots of opportunities for individuals to find their role in saving our democracy. So it's there. We still have it. It's on our website. Second one was Democracy Action Team. So it was our thought that we could form, if we could use the work that we've been doing and get democracy action teams started all over the country. So that was our vision. So we wanted to put together a structure that would support that. And if we had these democracy action teams all over the country, they could work with their congregations and it would build our combined strength, and we would be stronger and more powerful. And that would be a huge asset to UUs everywhere, and to ourselves and to the country. And the third piece was harder. And we started talking about how do we build these partnerships? And it's really important to work with coalitions. And they're forming around the country. And we're starting to see them happen, different things happening sponsored by coalitions. And we'll talk some more about that. But that's really critical to actually overcoming this authoritarian situation we're in. So one of the nice things about personal plans is you can actually do something yourself, regardless of what you're connected with. And it does help. Every time that I do one of the actions, make a phone call to Congress or go to an event or whatever, it does make me feel better, and it does make a difference. So we're actually moving people from being democracy worriers to democracy warriors. So that's the transition we're hoping for many, many people. So our first poll, and I'll bring that up in a second. What percentage of your congregation's members would you estimate are currently actively engaged in actions to help save our democracy? Less than 10%, 10 to 25%, 25 to 50%, 50 to 75%, more than 75%. So I'm going to launch the poll. You all see that? So please start voting. So you can see what's your level of involvement of your congregation. We've got a few more people who could vote if they want to. Last minute votes. Okay, let me end the poll and share the results. So this is encouraging. So all of the congregations were pretty much, except for one, were more than 10%. We've got the bulk of people in 10 to 25, a fair number of people in 25 to 50, and a small sample in 50 to 75. That's really good. So we had one team that we were working with that actually had every member of the congregation was working on their democracy team. So that's encouraging. So go ahead, Dale.
one of the ways to really get a couple of things about getting the other members of your congregation engaged in taking some actions is that we found was to offer a book club around a couple of books. And one of the books I think is Saving Democracy by David Pepper. I think if you set up a book club, you can get through this book in 3 or 4 to 5 sessions, I'd say. And it really gives everyone an opportunity to start thinking about what their individual role could be in helping to save our democracy. So highly recommended book to use as a potential book club to offer in your congregation to get more people engaged. I think another potential book is this is the list of 50 things that you could do also that we have on our website. But another book that's come out more recently in 2024 is called Democracy in Retrograde by Sammy Sage and Emily Amick. And this is more of a workbook. Again, if you use it as a group, a book club book, the group can kind of go through and answer some key questions about your own personal commitment to civic engagement. The sections are on the importance of civic engagement, how to create your own personal mission statement about helping support our democracy, identify what your civic personality is and how you might fit in with a role, creating a civic calendar for yourself, and then developing a network. So it's a combination of self-help and kind of a political manifesto that's perfect for anybody who wants to help save our democracy but doesn't know where to start. That's how they promote this book. One of the comments in there is that our democracy's decline, the solution to our problems is all of us, each stepping up in our own way, unique ways. You don't need to do everything, but we need everyone to do something.
Okay, so, next up, we'll talk about democracy action teams. I think I want to go a little bit off script here, Dale.
Okay.
And do the second poll.
Okay.
Yeah, go back, because I have a sense that we've got a lot of democracy teams out there. So here's our second poll. Does your congregation currently have a group of people focused on protecting democracy, a democracy action team or equivalent? So and the answers are yes, yes, and I'm on the team. No, but I believe there's interest in starting one. No, but I will take back the information from today and see if there's interest, and no. So the answers are coming in. 32 responses. Anyone else want to read? Yeah, 33. Okay. Got 35 of the 41 people on the call. All right, we'll stop end the poll there and share the results. So 5 people said that yes, we have a team, and 17 people said yes, and I'm on the team. Well done. So that's half our audience is basically already working with or on a democracy action team. And then no, but I believe there's interest, so that's a few people. And I've got 9 people who say no, but I will take back the information from today and see if there's interest in starting. Thank you to those 9 people for joining the rest of us. So I hope there is. And 1 said no. But stay in there and listen to the rest of this. Maybe you'll change your mind. Okay. So that gives me some sense of how a lot of people have democracy teams already, but we'll go through this reasonably quickly. So the purpose of the team is, and you wind up relating to a lot of different groups here. So if you look at the Congregational Democracy Action Team in the middle there, you can get information from UU The Vote. We certainly will provide you with lots of information you use for social justice, and work with your UU State Action Network, and you can work with local groups, and all of those are really helpful. And you want to engage members of your congregation in things that are happening electorally, legislatively, and civil resistance. Can do a lot of education things in terms of saving our democracy, and coordinate with all of those various groups. Next slide. So if you're launching a team, I'll go through these steps pretty quickly. Basically assemble a core team. And organize and ground the team in terms of you have your first meeting and kind of get how often you're going to meet, how are you going to communicate, what are the roles going to be, who's going to lead the team, who's going to do various communications, what other roles will people play. You want to make sure that you're aligned. So we recommend that you put together a mission statement. And that resolution over there has been one that Dale's will talk about a little later. And educate people. That's one of the largest things you can do is provide some education about what's going on and what people can be doing right now. And finally, put together a plan in terms of what are the goals you want to achieve, what key issues do you want to address, what are your actions. And often when you're getting started, we kind of start with fairly simple things like symbols and here we are, our group is getting going. So I think that, yeah. So we actually have done, we have flags that we've got things that can do t-shirts, bumper stickers, formal statements, group or mass petitions, anything that basically gets people to aware that you're going as a group and they can get involved with it. And we encourage you to do faith-based messaging. I think that sets us apart from a lot of the various groups that are working on democracy. And I think it's an advantage because all of our basic UU values are under attack right now. And the more we can get people to recognize these values are really important and they're critical for our society, the better off we'll all be. So use moral and spiritual language, train trained some spokespeople, and use a variety of platforms, including social media, newsletters, sermons, podcasts, letters to the editor, bulletins, and use that strategy and try to reach out to people. And that's the draft resolution. That's from that's from our AIW. For those of you who are delegates here today, Faithful Defiance for Democracy, a call to action. And this was from the UU Church in Sarasota that Dale put together. And this is my group in Concord, Massachusetts. We called Reclaim Our Democracy. We were formed in 2016, back when there was a congregational study action issue. It was called The Corruption of Our Democracy. And we'd been working on inequality issues at that time. And the biggest inequality seemed to be around what was going on with democracy. So we jumped right into it and said, okay, let's switch over, let's form our team. We picked Reclaim Our Democracy. It was a popular term at the time. It's gotten even more popular right now. So we were clever in our foresight. But our goal is to reclaim our democratic rights as citizens of the United States of America, to have a government that truly represents and supports the needs and desires of all people. So we were thinking very broadly then. And we did do some banners and symbols. Oh, hold on, go back there. If you look at that's our church in the background in the top picture. And we've got a banner that says, "We believe in democracy." We've got a Black Lives Matter banner. We've got a pride flag. And we've had some wonderful speakers come to our church over these now 9 years. We've had Stephen Levitsky and Daniel Zeblatt. We've had David Pepper, Lawrence Lessig, Danielle Allen, Nancy McLean, Adam Eichen, Jeff Clements, a number of names you should recognize. We're sort of blessed because we're not far from Boston, and we've got a fairly large church in Concord, so they come and speak there. And we've done a bunch of marches. So that picture on the top was a recent gathering of about 500 people, one of the rallies around Patriots Day in Concord, right after that. We've done 2 different democracy festivals, gotten hundreds of people to come. We had about 25 different groups that participated. And we have a biweekly newsletter that's very popular. And we've got our own website, reclaimourdemocracy.org. So that's enough about us. So
I
back
think
to you,
that,
Dale.
yeah, the third thing, so we've talked about the personal, helping people find their role and their personal plan. We've talked about creating a democracy action team. But the third thing then is to reach out beyond your democracy action team and consider creating local coalitions to really strengthen your pro-democracy movement. Coalitions are crucial for a movement. You really can't do it without a coalition strategy. They enhance the visibility, they increase the likelihood of success, and they build a more powerful voice for change. So what is a coalition? So you have to think about a coalition as multiple separate organizations coming together and creating a new organization, typically with a representative from each of those participating organizations. And the coalition benefits are listed on the right there. They're undeniably more powerful in terms of increasing public visibility, expanding reach and access. Sharing resources is a really important issue right now because most of the non-for-profits are strapped for resources. And so if you can share infrastructure in a coalition, it oftentimes is very effective. You want to reduce duplication. You want to get aligned messaging. You want to speak together in concert on these issues. And it strengthens your legitimacy and trust to have multiple organizations represented in a single voice. One of the things to think about a coalition, and you may be in one, is that there are different levels of kind of integration of the organizations. And I think it's worth thinking about this. One is the lowest level of probably, I don't know if you could call it a coalition, is really just simply networking, where members of the different groups get to know each other, maybe at events, they touch base, they share a little bit of information about what they're doing, but they really are continue to fundamentally do their own thing. The second level is one of cooperation, where they talk and share information, maybe at periodically a regular meeting where they meet and share what they're doing with each other. But you really need to get your coalition up into the level of the coordination or collaboration. In coordination, they support each other's programs. You might be promote each other's programs in your newsletter or on Mobilize or anything that you may be using as a messaging system. And you're really co-sponsoring events, perhaps training, etc. And finally, the more complicated is the collaboration, where you have a more fixed structure, but you're really planning together and you're coming together as a group that wants to coordinate efforts across the whole system here. So we have actually David Reutman's on the call today, but his Unitarian Society of Northampton in Florence, Massachusetts. He's been a member of our Democracy Action Team, and he's been on their group is in probably 2 or 3 coalitions, and he made some really, I think, insightful comments about this. He said that it's important that you understand what the vision of your coalition is. Is it a long-term or something you want to sustain for a long period of time, or is it more of a short-term coalition to achieve a shorter-term goal? You want to make sure your focus is clear, whether it's on specific issues like immigration or more generally around pro-democracy activities. You want to decide how integrated your coalition is going to be. It's kind of like the similar previous slide about it. Are you just sharing information or are you planning together?
Still there, Dale? Dale? We may have lost Dale for a bit. Although he's still there, he's sharing his screen. Maybe it's unlost. See if we get Dale back here. Sorry about the technology.
Hey, Fred, while we're waiting for Dale, do you want to answer Jan's question? Is it okay to have a political party organization in your coalition, or would that threaten your status?
We try to avoid having the political parties, although we do work with other groups at times. I've actively worked with Indivisible on things that are not partisan activities. But I haven't tried to work directly with the Democratic Party. I think that would feel wrong to me. I think we invite them to do things sometimes with us, but it has to be nonpartisan. Yeah, let's see if I can figure out where Dale was. Dale, are you back? Just admitted him.
Says he's joining.
Good. I can pick up if he's not able to get back.
She's gone again.
He's staying at the Hilton Hotel, and he got
Room number.
there may be a lot of people.
Can you
There
hear
may
me?
be a lot of people. Yeah, we can hear you. Thanks, Dale. Good to have you back.
Oh my God, what happened there?
I think we lost you.
All right, let's see if we can get back up and going here.
I'm glad you came back. I was about to try and do your part.
Okay, can you see this?
Yes,
Yeah, you're
sir.
up, you're
All
up to
right.
power. I think you
So
jumped ahead a little bit, right?
yeah, so this is we talked about the power. This is under
Okay.
the strategy section. Did you get that?
Yep. That is, um, you were right toward the end of that. I think
Okay.
you're
All
getting
right.
into the beginning of strategy. This is fine.
Okay, so one of the important concepts I think that we really learned some from this recent Rise Up for Freedom series, this training on civil resistance, is this concept of pillars of support for the regime's power. And it says social movements have a moment when autocracy gets pushed out. And we have to understand that autocratic power relies on pillars of support. Media, government, corporations, ICE workers, you know, the military, police, and that nothing happens without the consent of the people doing the actual work to make, an authoritarian agenda work. And faith groups can get in the way of the system by focusing on trying to remove some of the pillars of support. So one way to think of this is that these are on the right, you're seeing a variety of potential players in our political system that represent pillars of support or resistance. So we don't know how many of the police force across our nation fall on the right side of this, being active supporters, kind of hardcore MAGA supporters, and how many are far on the left, which are vocal active resistors. But these categories are important to think about because it's probably true of corporations, religious groups, government workers. They fall across this whole spectrum. And the strategy in terms of removing pillars of support is one where we're reaching out and we're trying to get those that are the most active supporters to begin to stay at home as they rethink their position. You know, it could be the farmers or the ranchers out in western Nebraska that are finding that they have no workers anymore, that they may not move all the way to the far left of being vocal democracy activists, but they may be quiet and withdraw some of their support. From the passive supporters from the autocrat, this could be the business community that are looking for the financial advantages of the current government. We want them to start thinking about withdrawing some of their financial support. For those indifferent citizens, maybe non-voters, we want them to get to the point where they vote. And then this group of silent anti-MAGA forces, or those pro-democracy people but have been very silent, we want them to move over and become vocal supporters. And in many ways, you know, if you think about this across the faith-based organizations, from the conservative evangelicals on the far right to the UU activists on the left, it might be that this group right here, liberal, progressive, faith-based organizations, we really need that group to become activated because silence among passive resistors is a form of support of the autocracy. That if they remain silent, they're not, they're allowing the autocracy to continue. So I'm going to hand this over to Fred.
Thank you, Dale. So one of the ways that we've started looking at this strategically is to look at the types of actions that are needed. And we've broken it in. This is a model that I've seen that actually came to us from a group of kind of a coalition of groups that was working on this. And it has four pieces. First one is bridging, and that's essentially finding common ground, working with other groups, working with other individuals, and trying to find common things that you can do together. Blocking is preventing harm. Breaking is actually disrupting the regime, and building is growing the movement and planning the future. And I'll get to more details on each slide. So let's talk about blocking. So that's stopping as much harm from happening as possible. So here are a number of things that your democracy action teams can do with their congregations. You can partner with other immigrant protection organizations to protect communities and individuals under threat. One of the things that I know we're doing is we've got Know Your Rights red cards that we're giving out to lots and lots of different people to hand out. You can witness, essentially make a recording of what's happening if you come across something that looks like it's violent or illegal activities. So you can be a witness, bear witness. Support organizations that are using the courts to stop authoritarian legislation. So you can actually donate to these organizations, and there's a group that actually takes money and gets it to the right organizations, or recommends organizations to give the money to. And you can advocate with us against harmful legislation. So there's an opportunity right now with the Big Beautiful Bill to advocate against that. Then break is a lot to do with the pillars that Dale was just talking about. Weakening, cheapening, and ultimately breaking authoritarian political strength and its popular support. So one of the early activities you do is what we've already seen in large numbers, get huge rallies and protest events going. And I believe the number that was recorded for this last rally was something like 5 million people were involved across the country. And that's just enormous. So we're definitely building up our numbers. But to actually to actually make a difference beyond just the numbers, we need to do some sorts of intervention. And this will depend on what activities are happening by different groups. So there may be groups that are on strike that we can support. Boycotts are fairly easy to support if it's something that you can use and stop using. And non-cooperation actions. So that gets to be everything would be nonviolent, but this would be things that would disrupt something else that was happening. And build coalitions. So it's easy to get attacked if you're one law firm or one university, but if you work with your other groups in coalition, that strengthens you. You can take more action. And that's true of all of these actions. And pressure and weaken pillars of support, take advantage of backlash, take advantage of unpopular anti-democratic actions, get media attention. So all of this is part of building that democracy movement that we really need to be strong and powerful. So Bridge is bringing groups together and helping move more people into our pro-democracy coalition. So one of the things you can do is help out. People are always asking me, what else? Well, what can I do? Well, UUSJ has an actions and events list, and I posted that earlier. I'll put it up again when I'm done. That has all sorts of things. We update it on a regular, every couple of day basis. It has many, many actions and events you can take advantage of. Bring people to engage in discussions. So we've done some work. My group in Concord has done work with Braver Angels, and we've had them come and meet with us. Then you get to do like one-on-one conversations and learn how to do that effectively without getting into arguments with each other. And obviously build relationships with other groups, get outside of our bubble. A lot of us live in blue bubbles, and we need to get outside of that and talk with other people. Experiment with faith values-based messaging. So we talked about that earlier. And write a newsletter, create a newsletter that goes out to a bunch of people. So you're trying to draw more people into the movement, bring groups together, bring people together, get more into the coalition. And a quote from Nelson Mandela, if you want to make peace with your enemy, you have to work with your enemy. Then he becomes your partner. I think as you saw in Dale's slide, you kind of work your way in that direction. I think we can bring people into the movement that aren't necessarily our enemies. They're just not being that very active right now. Okay. So build kind of has two pieces. The first one is, I think, what most of the groups are doing and want to do is to build on what they're already doing, growing their membership, increasing participation, improving their communications, doing more activities to help build and strengthen the democracy movement. Basically, they're trying to build on what they're doing. But for groups and individuals who are interested in transformative change and longer term thinking, what you really need to do is look at the main issues that need to be improved and look at there's a lot of research going on that we don't spend a lot of time on about how we can improve our current systems. And I think as we start to build a model of what that could be, we can develop a vision that I think will have broad appeal. And that's really needed now. So we need to have not just we're trying to get out of authoritarianism, we need a future that we can all believe in. So that's what Build is about.
So we were just looking at our own UU congregation in Sarasota in terms of those strategies. And in the past couple of years, two of our members, went forward with a bridging strategy by forming an organization that they call CATA, which is Conversations Across the Aisle. And they started this, they're doing dinners once a month. They have an issue and they're inviting people from across both of the political spectrums to come together, have a meal, and have a conversation about an issue. And this was precipitated by two members within our congregation who got this started. So a blocking strategy, we have an immigration justice coalition forming, and they are going out every couple weeks, doing a Know Your Rights campaign, passing out the red cards, and developing some strategies to protect. So their blocking strategy is primarily to protect threatened people. Of course, we also have another group, what was a Pink Haven group that's organized to protect the gay or the LGBTQ community. But we have a building strategy. We have members that sit on an organization that a couple of years ago with Florida's banned book strategy and taking a lot of the history of African Americans out of the schools, they formed a Saturday Freedom School where they teach African American history to students on a Saturday morning as a parallel institution, which is one of the kind of the building strategies that you could focus on. From a breaking strategy, we have members that have go out and at the most recent protest right in downtown Sarasota, wearing their shirts. We have recently licensed Mobilize for our church to be able to better coordinate our social justice activities. And we have about 8 members that are using that Mobilize platform to organize their efforts. And finally, the ministers in our community from a variety of the faith-based organizations posted a letter in our local paper, and whether this is a bridging or building strategy, I'm not sure, but a letter in support of DEI. So beginning to form coalition activities. So one of the things that we have to talk a little bit about before we close here is civil resistance training. And Gandhi advocated for training and discipline among his followers, focusing on truth, nonviolence, and self-suffering. His methods include, of course, non-cooperation, civil disobedience, peaceful protest, with the goal of converting the opponent rather than destroying them. Interesting idea. There's a consultant, Handy Merriman, who has a consulting firm around creating effective civil resistance. And he talks about who needs to be trained. And his makes a simple kind of 3-part case. He says you need a few core organizers in a region. These are a small number of individuals willing to commit days, weeks, months, and years to being an organizer in the community. And they need deep training, multiple week training and connection with other core organizers to really understand how to be effective as an organizer. The second group are your local organizers, and I kind of think of this as your core members of your Democracy Action Team. Could be a relatively large number of people willing to offer some time and energy to the movement, and their training needs are more short-term. They need to understand effective team building, organizing meetings, planning local events, and using communication systems. And then finally, there's a very large group of potential participants in a movement. They're willing to participate under certain circumstances, such as the 50-51 opportunity to go into the streets. Their training might only need to be a orientation 30 minutes to an hour beforehand, some basic information on how to behave at a protest. And so you should think about who within your Democracy Action Team or who those people are and those key leaders are around and their training needs. Two great sources for thinking about civil resistance. One is this book by Erica Chenoweth called Civil Resistance, What Everyone Needs to Know. It's a great audio book. She reads it. You can take it in parts, and she just covers the whole science behind civil resistance, which I think is very helpful. And finally, this is a classic book called From Dictatorship to Democracy by Gene Sharp. It's a little red book. He has a great advice in the front, but at the back, they have 198 nonviolent civil resistance tactics that you can look at and consider. More recently, UUSJ helped sponsor this Arise for Freedom series. It started in March, and they've had, you can see the dates and the topics that were covered. These are now in video format, and I think you can reach them at the Rise for Freedom site. I think Fred's planning to post them on the UUSJ website with maybe some editing to kind of shorten some of the
They're there, but they haven't edited them. Sorry, Dale.
Yeah, well, that's one of your goals going forward. So, so then Fred, go ahead and let's kind of close this out.
Okay, so going forward, in terms of our Democracy Leaders Group meetings, we will continue to meet on a monthly basis, and you can sign up on the Democracy Action Teams, actually on the UUSJ website. So I put in the chat links for the UUSJ website, the Democracy Leaders web pages that has pretty much all of the information that we've been using to share with people. Actions and events is this thing that the document gets updated regularly, and Democracy Resources has a ton of different lists of things that you can learn from and actually borrow from. There's videos and books and you name it. If you were looking for it, we probably got it there. Anyway, so coming up, we're working on rapid response team for legislation, particularly. And that's happening right now. And it's urgent that you either call or write your senators about what's going on with the big, beautiful bill. We're trying to deepen our connections with various UU organizations and other faith-based pro-democracy groups and campaigns, and try and get them. We'd like to see a little bit more leadership obvious from the top, so we're working on seeing if we can encourage that and also learn from it. And I think that's starting to happen as well. Some civil resistance training, we need to do more of that. That's sort of the upcoming things that are going to require more training that Dale was just talking about. We want to build bigger coalitions and participate in that. We want to keep growing our leaders group. We'll be continuing to do advocacy on the Hill and trying to do more in terms of coordinating strategies with other groups. So we just basically want to grow what we've done and do it more effectively and get more powerful. And to support our work, there are things you can do right now. We did an action of immediate witness. I'll put a link to that in. It's faithful defiance of authoritarianism, a call to reaffirming our covenants and freedom. And even if you're not at the GA right now, you probably want to read this. Let me get it in the chat. Faithful defiance of authoritarianism, a call to action reaffirming our covenants and freedom. So that's in front of, will be in front of the whole GA assembly. Actually, as I'm speaking, maybe I'm speaking in two places right now. You can visit us at our UUSJ table if you're here at GA, and Dale and I will both be there from time to time. You can join our leaders group meetings, and you're more than welcome to do that. And check out our Democracy Action resources. So that's the Democracy Leaders web pages. That'll get you there, and the resources. Sign up for UUSJ e-news, which comes out on a regular basis. And you can give UUSJ some money. It's a very small organization. They're pretty much all volunteers with a very limited paid staff. But before you leave, I'd like you to take a few minutes to think about what you've heard at this presentation, and think about this as, so what would I add to my list of actions that I want to take personally, your to-do list? So take a few minutes, what you've heard, and write down what you will do with the information you've learned, both personally and for your congregation. And we'll give you a couple of minutes, and then we'll open it up for conversation. Okay.
Should I stop sharing here, Fred?
Yeah, you can stop sharing, and let's look at everybody. We'll let you, can you show us everybody? Hi, y'all. The rest of you could show yourselves. That would be nice. I'd like to look at the people. You don't have to, obviously. It's up to you, but it would be nice.
Say, Fred, is the next Democracy Leaders meeting on the 23rd of July?
That's the current schedule, yeah.
Okay, 7:30 p.m.?
Yep, sounds right.
Alrighty.
I think it's Wednesday. It might be the 25th. I haven't got my calendar in front of us.
Yeah,
From-
my calendar says that it's the 23rd, but
Okay.
Could you
I'll
please,
believe, if you're looking at a calendar, I believe you. People are still writing down what they're thinking. That's good. Appreciate that.
Jules has her hand raised, Fred?
Yeah. Go ahead, Jules.
yeah, I would like confirmation of when the next meeting is. Wednesday is July 25th. That would be the fourth Wednesday. And is it 7:30 Eastern time?
Yeah, it's Eastern time.
And will we get an email to register?
Yes. Are you currently on our list, Jules?
I believe so. Well, I think I am. Yes.
Okay. Then you'll definitely get, yeah, I sent out a message today to our mailing list about this meeting. So if you got that, then you're on our list.
Yes, I
And-
did. Okay.
And Fred,
Okay.
that Wednesday is the 23rd, July 23rd.
But I
Okay.
think June is the 24th, or 25th, so are you not meeting in June?
Yeah, next
Correct.
week there.
This is our meeting in June. Congratulations. If this is your first Democracy Leaders meeting, you've made it.
Okay, so this is the June meeting?
Yeah,
So there isn't one next week?
Right.
no.
Ah, okay, that's where the confusion.
Okay.
nope, we
Gotcha.
substituted.
We didn't mean to confuse you. I'm sorry. Jules.
That's why I'm so confused.
All right,
Okay.
could you please say clearly, the next meeting is Friday, July 25 at 7:30 Eastern?
No, it is Wednesday, July
Okay.
23rd at 7:30 p.m.
Okay,
Wednesday, July 23rd, 7:30 p.m. Okay.
Right.
Eastern, right,
Eastern time.
okay.
Any questions, comments, thoughts, hopes, dreams?
Gary's got his hand up.
Okay,
I'll take it. Good afternoon. I understand your reasons for focusing on the Congress, the Senate and the House. I recall in the past, I used to be a former UUSJ board member before they restructured. And I supported the restructuring, frankly, for the reasons you stated. Is meeting with the administration a lost cause with respect to various issues of importance to us?
we haven't considered it. There are various petitions that go out that actually go to the president or whatever, but it's not on our list of things we're considering. Do you have an in there that would be useful?
Well, in the past, we didn't exclude the executive branch, but
Yeah.
for reasons I think we all understand, it probably is a lost cause to meet with this administration and their, should I say, I'll use a kind word, numbness to social justice.
I'm not even
Yeah.
sure we would be invited.
No.
Are you talking about the UUA administration?
No.
No, the
Oh,
Trump
oh.
administration.
Okay. Yeah, numbness is polite and is absolutely abominable, the opposite.
Right.
Well, to pick up on your point on UUA, I am glad to see that over the last few years, UUA is giving more attention to UUSJ activities. It was very nice that has not always been the case.
Yeah, no, we're actually pleased to be able to do this event at GA. So we've had several, I've applied several times before, but this one they took. Seems like the theme of GA this year is meet the moment. And I said, wow, if this doesn't meet the moment, I don't know what does.
Right.
Well, thanks for taking my questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
No.
we really see the continued opportunity for we talk about coalitions with like-minded organizations in our local communities, but we see that even within states, even here in Florida, we have a state action network that has been kind of low-key activities, and we have 45 congregations here in Florida, and there isn't a lot of coordination or conversation about how to work together. And so we see that as a great opportunity is actually forming coalitions with ourselves to be more aligned, not only with our state action networks, but even between UUA and the other organizations like UUSJ. We need to get more aligned so that we can speak with a much stronger voice. And there's barriers to that for historical ones, and we need to address them.
I have a question for you all. I'm wondering how many of you came to us through the GA link. How many of you are actually at GA? One, two. Is that it? Two? Wow. I was wondering if anybody could find us. Okay.
Brad,
glad
this is going to be available, the presentation on our website for people to download.
Yeah, the recording will be available. I think anyone who's registered for this will get it.
Is there also a PDF version of the PowerPoint that we could post if they don't want to listen to the whole?
Yep, if you want to send it to me, I will post it.
Okay.
Thank you, Paulette.
We usually put the regular PowerPoint up, Bill, unless you want it to be a PDF.
You rock, Paulette.
Well, sometimes the PowerPoint is hard to download because of the size of it, and you might want a PDF version for people. So,
Oh, maybe we'll do both, whatever. Sometimes people want to take it and modify it and use it. That's the way it works.
which they can.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments, thoughts, people, hope?
Just
My
wanted to
comment-
thank you for doing it.
Oh, go ahead.
Just wanted to thank you for doing it.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Thank you
You're
for
more than-
attending. Thank you for attending.
Did you learn anything? We hope. Few things. But
Well,
anything you
that
want to
was
share?
that was a good presentation. I've watched the Rise for Freedom and the Jaila Upal Resistance Lab and, several varieties. This one was pretty good. And, from the pillars to the actions, and I like the 4 R's. That's very helpful.
4 Bs. Yeah.
These, yeah.
Good.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Okay. Right.
Okay.
Block,
Yeah, you got it,
become,
Paul.
begin, bombast, whatever. And it's great.
Okay, thank you.
I'm out here in Denver, and we have 160 people in our rapid response group, but we're not really up and running the way I'd like to be, with people doing daily and weekly actions. We did a survey June 1st, and we're now following up that survey and forming 5 groups, one of which is who's willing to do daily and weekly actions. So we're trying to ramp up, but it's a piece of work, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. You're absolutely right.
Cat
Yes.
herding 101.
Yeah. Is the woman from Dearborn on today? Remember that last meeting?
Yeah.
She
No, I don't
said
think so.
she had 200 members in the congregation, and they all meet once a month as a Democracy Action Team. And I
Yeah.
told my minister that, and he said, "Whoa, how'd they do that?" And I said, "Whoa, the minister."
That's right.
Good for you, Paul. Good for you.
Yeah.
Paul, we're thinking about trying to bring her to one of our meetings, upcoming meetings, and have her really talk about how they were able to do that. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That'd be great. Thank you.
Well, I do have a meeting with my minister tomorrow, so we'll see. I don't think I can get
Minister
580
Fred is
people.
pretty active.
Yes, she is. She's really good. She's new. She's happy to have us, though.
Yep. Gary?
Yeah, as I'm listening to all this, we have to realize we're in this for the long term. But you need some short-term successes to get people's attention.
Yeah.
And it's that combination or a balance, should I say, that is difficult to achieve. I think your point about the need to collaborate with like-minded groups is very important. Otherwise, we risk being fragmented and maybe working at cross purposes. Even at the No Kings March, we found that there was a lot of misinformation out. There wasn't, and I think through collaboration that would have remedied that. It takes a lot of patience to put up with what you hear day to day,
Yeah.
to say the least. But again, this is it's like a baseball season, 162 games.
yeah,
It's we got to maintain ourselves
Yeah.
with a little humor and hopefully with some successes along the way. But this is a marathon, not a 100 meter dash. So,
Yeah. And it's not something we've experienced before either. It's like, wow, this is new. What do we do here? Val,
Hey, Val, oh, sorry.
Yeah, just a quick question about the meetings. I tend to like to, when it's like a regular meeting, to have like the Zoom information right in the calendar. Does the Zoom link stay the same, or do I need to make sure that I update and check the Zoom link?
The Zoom links stay the same for our monthly meetings. It is different though than this meeting, this GA meeting. So yep.
thanks, Val. That was an easy question. And Paulette was here to answer it.
Yeah, and say, Fred, I think one thing that might be people, if you would talk just for a half a minute about the group that you guys put together at your church, where you're having the picnic and all of that to kind of get people
Democracy
mobilized.
festivals.
Yeah, Democracy Festival. I mean, I think that it would be so effective in so many different churches.
Yeah, we've had a couple of people have actually used the model. I did a presentation in one of our meetings, and actually the presentation's available. And I'm happy to help people do that. We had about 25 groups participate each time we did it. One time was indoors and one time was outdoors, and it was indoors because of the weather. And it was really noisy indoors, which showed a lot of liveliness, but it was crowded. And outdoors was much prettier and a little more spread out. But they're both good. And a lot of people came and they got to meet with so it was 25 tables basically spread around with all different groups. We used all of our social action groups took part, and many of the local groups took part in it. All of the groups working on democracy, pretty much within 20-mile radius or more, had a table, and they were thrilled to get the attention.
You know,
So it was pretty neat.
it's a great way to begin your coalition building because you get a chance to invite all the
Yeah.
pro-democracy groups and just in a low-key social networking opportunity, and you have the conversation, you know, maybe we should meet more regularly, and you get started. So
Yeah.
one of the things that when you think about coalition building, you have to be aware of though is if you get too many groups to try and start the coalition, it can really slow it down. You probably should start with, you know, 5 to 7 of the really dedicated groups in your community and then build on that rather than inviting 25 people to a meeting and trying to figure out how you would operate going forward. So that's one of the lessons I think that it's kind of important on coalition building.
Yeah, I'd start with one, Dale.
You stop.
See if we can make a relationship and then build from there. But you can join existing coalitions too,
That's true.
hopefully.
That's true.
Are you talking about groups like ACLU and Indivisible and MoveOn.org and 5051, etc.?
You know, the ones, if you're trying to form your local coalition, the ones that we're finding most people are seeking are the indivisible chapters in their community.
Right.
The League of Women Voters is a potential because they typically have chapters in your community. And then there are some, you know, LGBTQ national organizations that oftentimes have something local. But beyond that, most of the organizations are other faith-based organizations in your community, you know, local churches, like the United Church of Christ is a very progressive group, you know, that could be brought into a coalition. And then other groups that might be there supporting your school, you know, other groups like that. The national organizations that don't have local chapters are hard to bring into a local coalition. So like the ACLU, we don't have in Sarasota, there isn't an ACLU rep in our immediate area. So so those are the ones that we see as kind of the best to start with.
Thank you.
Looks like we might be ready to wrap up. It's about 2:30. Yeah, 2:28. Good job, Dale. We stayed on time.
Yeah, good job, Fred. Thanks everyone for coming.
Yeah, thank you all,
Thank
and
you.
hope we'll see you all again.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
Bye.